sometimes I feel like I'm on an island all by myself and no one understands what I do or the struggles that I put up with or the difficulties that running a business might entail. What's up, guys? Welcome back to the NS Builders Podcast. We took a little sabbatical, but we are back, and I want to dig into a couple things. Before I do, I got a couple goodies in the mail this past week. This is by Trent Presler. I want to say a friend of mine, but I guess he's just an Instagram friend. But I'm super excited to read Little and Often. It's a memoir. I've chatted with him here and there. Basically, if you don't follow him, he builds these really incredible canoes and documents the whole process. So excited to read this. And also, slide it over there. And then also the guys over at Brunt Workwear, they sent me a pair of boots. We got some last year and this year. Real quick, I haven't even opened this yet. I had mentioned that the insulated boots are great, but they're starting to get a little warm. So they came out with this mock toe. I'm bouncing the mic all over the place, Doug. Uninsulated leather boot. So gonna give these a whirl. So appreciate you guys sending this stuff. If you guys want to send some stuff for us to check out, I'm always happy to share it with the team. The address and stuff will be in the description below. If you guys are watching this on YouTube or listening to it on your favorite podcast app. This week I want to talk about refinement. And this week I actually sat down with Mike and Ken. You guys know Mike Hume. He's been with me the longest. Ken right behind that. And really just started chatting about where we are in this business and where we're going and what our goals are. And I mean goals in a couple different ways, professionally and what the business goals are. What does NS Builders want to be doing? But also personal goals, like what does Nick Schiffer want to be doing? What does Ken DeCoste and Mike Hume want to be doing? But it was an interesting conversation, and I feel like a lot of you are going to relate to this when I say this, is that sometimes I feel like I'm on an island all by myself and no one understands what I do or the struggles that I put up with or the difficulties that running a business might entail. And having this conversation with my team, my guys, is that, it's almost like this, well, if you just asked, like we'd sit down and talk about it. And, and it wasn't that cut and dry. It was more just, having this open and transparent conversation about, what am I struggling with? What are they struggling with? What was our goal 18 months ago as a company? Did we stay on path or did we veer off course? And, the reality, and I'm being dead honest here, is that we veered off course pretty hard. And, I'm being open about that because it's been an amazing 7 years or whatever it's been. I'm looking at Doug. 7 years? I think so. Yeah. Fact check. Cool. 7 years of growth and building this business from, a carpentry company into a building company. And I'm looking at the board across from me. It's like we have these amazing projects coming on board. But, what we fail to realize, and, from a business standpoint, is that, in that growth, you need to be careful. And plenty of people told me this advice. And I don't know if I'm saying this as advice more than just explaining kind of what my mind has been thinking about recently. But it really is about growing with the goal in mind. And I think one thing that I had done is that we grew and we hired and we started growing this company bigger, hiring more people, especially from the carpentry side. And we needed to keep the carpentry side busy. And I don't want to dance around that too much because that is the fact of the matter, is that, feed the machine, as they say. But, my whole career, I've always wanted to have a carpentry business that, or a building business with my own carpenters on staff. And I don't think that'll ever go away. But what I'm realizing is that, we need to focus on the projects that we want. And, in this year we have the opportunity to do that, and I'll just be straight with it. We want to focus on, very extensive renovations or new construction. And we've had the opportunity this year to really shift the seesaw to more new construction than renovation projects. And, I think there's a number of reasons as to why, probably COVID and everyone leaving the city. We've done a tremendous amount of work in the city, but, a lot of people wanting to build their home, build these homes forever, build their forever home, and do this and do it the right way. And we've had, the opportunity to be part of that, which is fantastic. And, but we continue to look at, smaller type renovation projects. And I would be lying if I said that those are so incredibly difficult, because we're almost trying to, restrict the way we approach those jobs, because or dilute, I guess would be the better word, dilute the way we approach our target job to then fulfill a smaller type project. And I see what that does to the business. And, and what I've, it's difficult because, the client's always going to get the end result, but the process in which it takes to get there, in my eyes, is flawed, because it's, this diluted process. And I think what I'm getting at is that, if we're structuring our company to do larger projects, taking on these smaller projects means that we need to dilute things, such as project management, or how much supervision is on the job, or the, because of the percentages. You can't have a full-time project manager on, say, a bathroom renovation, and because it doesn't make sense financially. And that's, and looking back at the last year and sitting down with my guys, is that, those were the pain points. Those were the projects that we took on that were difficult for us, to really approach the way that we wanted to, because we felt so restricted as to how we could manage it or project manage it. And, maybe you can attribute it, to anything else, but, we want to approach a project really, really thoroughly with, an immense amount of coordination, supervision, management. That's just the way we want to go about it. And, the overarching thing is that for us, our focus really has been refined. And even just this week, I feel like my focus has been, I've gotten some clarity as to sitting down and really just like kind of working backwards. Well, if we want to be here and we keep pulling ourselves back down to here, and not saying that they're a lesser job or they're less profitable or they're less desirable. It's just, for what our goals are, it just they don't hit all of that criteria. And, so I guess the ranking, let's go sideways. That sounds better. So if we want to be here and we keep pulling ourselves back to here, if you're listening to the podcast, I'm using my hands and you can't see this, but you get the gist. Then we're never going to be able to incrementally get up to that level that we want to be at. And, let me just get this on the table. My life goal as a builder, and I've shared this a couple times, is to build the most extraordinary homes anywhere in the world. And that's crazy. Like that, I've had opportunities or I've been presented opportunities, I should say, that, hey, they wanted me to build out of state, on the other the West Coast. And I'm down for that. I'm super interested in how do I make that work? How could I do it? I just want to be, at the end of the day, I just want to be, connected to some of the most incredible homes. And I feel like architects have this advantage over builders in the sense that they get to design, and oftentimes you see these architects designing all over the world. And I think that's so cool. And, and I want a piece of that. I almost want to team up with an architect that designs all over the world and then just travel the world and build for them. I think, as I'm sitting here spitballing, like that seems like such a cool business model. But at the end of the day, it's just I really want to work with people that really are, enamored by great architecture, that want great architecture, that appreciate great craftsmanship, that want, to build something that is truly one of a kind, that requires this, the utmost attention to detail. And, and in my, while we're talking about pipe dreams, in my pipe dream, that budget and timeline and all that stuff isn't a concern. It's just, I want you to do it. I want you, I want you to be profitable. I want you to make a fair dollar on it. And I just want what I want. It's not, we're not internalizing having this internal battle of, we need to do it faster. We need to do it cheaper. Like, we can't tell them it's going to cost this much. It's, forget all that. It's, what if we all just made a fair salary and we were just given the opportunity, a clear runway of, hey, this is what I want. Whatever it takes to get there, get there. And I know anyone that's listening is like, yeah, that must be nice. It's like, yeah, it would be nice, but I know that's not the reality. But for me, to kind of bring this full circle here, is like that conversation I had earlier this week with Mike and Ken, to be able to sit down and kind of look up at this board and start looking at, like, all right, which projects here actually check the boxes for our goal as a builder. And there's a handful of them up there that do. And then it's like, well, what about, second tier? Which one of them checks most of the boxes? And then there's a few there that, might. And then which ones don't check any of the boxes? And then there's, probably a majority of them that don't. That, I'm looking at one right now. I'm not going to use a name, but it's like great architect, like new architect we want to work with. Super cool project. The drawings are super cool. It would look great in our portfolio. But we can't approach it the way we want with project management. The budget's not really there. It's, and it's only part of the house. So, and I want to say they might have done a kitchen over at some point. So we don't even have the opportunity to do the kitchen. So it's, does that really make sense? Like, I don't want to just take a photo of a room. I want to take a photo of, this is the house that we built. This is the house that we renovated. Look at the whole thing. And, and I look at another one where it's, it's an amazing job. The design is absolutely incredible, and incredibly, expensive condo in the city. They want to put a ton of money into it, which is great. It's not about the money. It's about the fact that they know what they want. They have a very elaborate design and they're willing to pay for it. But then but schedule is the most important thing to them. And it's like, man, like that doesn't check the box. Like, they're going to come after us and demand this intense schedule, and we just can't deliver on that. We would be over promising and then under delivering, because either we would suffer the quality, we would never suffer the quality. We would suffer probably the scope of work in order to get things done, or we would suffer and basically lie to them and not get things done on time, and then it would just be a mess. So it's, having, I guess the takeaway from here is work with your team, especially those that share the same vision as you, and work together and don't internalize this. Don't sit on that island all by yourself. If you've built a great team and you have guys that are on your team that share similar visions for the company, personally, yes, but for the company specifically, sit down with them. Sit down with them once a month. You have a beer after work, whatever it is, and just talk big picture. And, for me, that, I try to make an effort to do it more often, but the more often I do, it, the better I feel, especially the next day. I think Ken and Mike both snickered and said that, oh, you're in a better mood today. And I said, I am. Sitting down with you guys, it gave me the opportunity to kind of just clear some of the fog in my brain and realize that, number one, we're not too far off. We're headed in the right direction. But, I keep constricting the pipeline by taking projects that don't make, a ton of sense for us. And, and realizing some of the reasons that we were doing that were, also weren't part of the goal. Like, it just, we were taking on projects to, fulfill time slots that we didn't really need to fulfill those time slots. It was just like, hey, we can take another project on. We have the time, but we have the time, yes, but now we're losing time on the pre-planning and the pre-construction that, is so incredibly important to us. So if we're going to be this premier builder that's focused on these, ground up home, new construction, custom homes, elaborate builds, most extraordinary homes, then the pre-construction and the pre-planning and all of that is where we set ourselves up for success. Like, no doubt that is where it starts, and that's where we need to start. And we need to start that now. That's all I got this week. Guys, thank you for tuning in to another episode of the NS Builders Podcast. Make sure you check us out on all of the podcast apps. Drop us a comment in iTunes. Let us know how we're doing. Hit us up on Instagram. And make sure... Got a little spit in my mouth. Make sure you check out Site Visit and Revealed on YouTube. Site Visit is a follow along with me when, once a week I hit a bunch of the job sites, show you guys what's going on and behind the scenes. Pretty much what my role is when I show up on site, and Doug's just capturing it. And Revealed is Ken's series, very similar. What's going on in our millwork shop, cabinet shop? What are they working on? What are the details? What are the struggles that they might be running into? You saw this week, Ken, talks about one of his mistakes, and what that meant and why we decided to fix it. So make sure you guys tune into that. And then also, just to continue to tease you, we are in production of our Crafted series. You've seen some of what is going on. You've seen some of the Crafted series, on YouTube. But this is a totally different approach to start to finish, behind the scenes, building a house all the way through and through, something that you guys are really going to enjoy. And by the way, you guys have asked, I have succumbed to offering merch. There is a link on the bottom of the website. We'll also include it in the description here for the podcast, as well as our YouTube video. So if you guys want a t-shirt, we got, I think, 4 styles. One, I think, is close to being sold out. Either way, guys, if you guys want a shirt, check out the link below and get one of them. And if you get it, make sure you share it on Instagram so we can share it. And make sure you tag us on Instagram so we can share it. We'll see you guys next week.